midnight cordial of hysteria. You wake to the creak of hemp rope and the perfume of scorched tallow, a combination that can mean only two things in the Puritan township of Spindle Elm. Someone's hanging laundry after curfew, or someone's hanging full stop, and the crowd outside your cell window seems far too excited for linen. The wooden shutters are nailed shut from the outside, leaving just a knothole the size of a guilty pupil through which moonlight inserts itself like evidence. Before the panic fully colonizes your ribcage, please indulge a tiny civic duty. If the steady clatter of my quill and the gentle droning of this chronicle somehow soothe your embattled nerves, take a fleeting moment, no more than a heartbeat on the scales, to tap whatever charm or talisman passes for a like, maybe even pledge yourself as a subscriber to further ramblings. In the ledger of comments, jot where you're listening from and which hour the sand has surrendered in your corner of the world. Mapping the insomnia of strangers has become my favorite cartography. Now snuff the candle, lean into the susurrus of the night air, or switch on a low fan for that sweet background hum, and let us descend together into a little traveling furnace called history. Your wrists are manacled to an iron ring bolted into a beam, and every time you exhale too loudly, the village constable bangs on the door with the butt of his halberd, as though testing the ripeness of fruit. You've been labeled Suspect 8 in the ledger of Magistrate Torquil Bexley, a man who combs his beard by first dipping it in lye to preserve its moral rigidity. No one has informed you of specific charges, but the wall outside the courthouse currently hosts a hand-lettered poster that reads in bold soot, "Confession in the clearest fire." Below that, in smaller print, someone has penned, "Admission of innocence counts as confession. Thank you, you are allegedly a witch," or, if rumors can be trusted to fold themselves properly, at least a sympathetic vessel for diabolical energies. Your actual crime was falling asleep during Reverend Mallory's 3-hour sermon on the spiritual hazards of pumpkins. The snore that escaped your lungs ricocheted around the rafters like a drunken sparrow, and the congregation, starved for excitement, decided it was the devil's war trumpet. From there, hysteria grew like moss on wet gravestones. Left unchecked, slightly green, faintly luminous, the cell stinks of damp straw and petrified confessions. A single bucket in the corner accommodates all bodily negotiations. Someone has charitably carved the word hope into its rim. You contemplate hope, tip the bucket, empty, and decide ironies alive and well. Chains clink as you shift, setting off a chorus of neighboring prisoners whom you cannot see but can almost smell. Suspect 4 humming a psalm in minor key. Suspect 6 reciting recipes backwards in case angels are eavesdropping. Suspect 1, accused of foul weather, muttering how clouds were never his responsibility. Sometime around what feels like Wednesday, but might still be Tuesday, footsteps approach. 2 sets, one heel heavy, one feather light. The door groans open to reveal Constable Wretch, the heel heavy owner, and beside him, a child, no older than 11, her pinafore spotless, her smile the color of fresh parchment. This is Eudora Bexley, daughter of the magistrate, self-appointed truth sifter, known for examining suspects with the ferocity of a raven spotting shiny things. Eudora's first words: "Do you dream in color?" You blink. She clasps her hands. Only witches dream in color. Honest folk dream in sepia, so the Lord can sketch corrections. You answer that you seldom recall dreams. She scribbles on a wax tablet. Possible liar. Dreams unknown. She sniffs the air. Second test. Do you smell like brimstone? Before you reply, she waves a nosegay under her nostrils. No brimstone, only fear. Fear smells like parsnips. More scratching of stylus. Finally, she pulls from her pinafore a live frog, painted blue. Kiss it. If it remains a frog, you are guilty. If it becomes a prince, you're also guilty for conjuring royalty without a license. You kiss the frog, which blinks and croaks, untransformed. Eudora beams. The evidence is solidifying. She curtsies, frog tucked under her arm like a scandal, and departs. Constable Wretch locks you in again, muttering, "Sunrise is a fine time for honesty." Minutes or hours. Later, a slip of parchment slides beneath the door. It reads, "If you wish to survive, feign visions. Tell them you saw the devil in Mallory's pulpit complaining about acoustics. No signature, but the handwriting loops like sleepy ivy. You wonder which neighbor is moonlighting as correspondent." The night deepens its claws. Outside, you hear townsfolk constructing the tribunal platform on Cobbler's Green. Hammers jotting verdicts in wood. You imagine your own silhouette up there, framed by torches, a scarecrow in borrowed clothes. Fear suggests screaming. Pride suggests waiting. Exhaustion suggests using fear and pride as pillows and dreaming of elsewhere. You pick exhaustion. Sleep arrives like a poorly shod bailiff. Loud, abrupt, not to be argued with. In it, you stand barefoot in a wheat field under eclipse. The sun is a coin slipped halfway into a black purse. Something approaches. Hooves? No, it's a chair scuttling on spider legs. Bearing on its seat a leather-bound ledger. The ledger opens itself. Pages flip faster than wind could flip them. Each page bears your name in different inks. Some fresh, some faded, all crossed out. From behind the ledger steps Eudora, her smile turned 90 degrees, too wide. "Choose a page," she whispers, "and burn it, or it burns you." You reach for the freshest ink, but wake before ink or burn can be decided. Yanked back by the sunrise bell. 2 iron notes, flat and final. The cell door opens again. Magistrate Torquil Bexley stands there, beard an icicle of judgment. He gestures for guards to unchain you. Court requires the accused to stand freely, so the rope finds fair purchase. The phrasing tries to be merciful, but lands like sarcasm. Eudora trails behind him, frogless now, hands clasped around fresh parchment. Outside, dawn bleeds across the village square. The tribunal platform looms, festooned with grim spectators, clutching apothecary bags of boiled sweets. Witch trials pair well with sugar. Reverend Mallory perches on a barrel, sermon pages fluttering like flightless doves. You ascend the ladder to the scaffold, escorted by Constable Wretch, whose breath hums of cider and second thoughts. Magistrate Vexley announces the charges: heresy, color dreaming, non-sepia memory infractions, and frog misconduct. The crowd murmurs approval. You glance over heads and spot 3 ravens perched on the stalks. One preens, one yawns. The third cocks its head, as if already drafting your obituary. The trial operates on call and echo. Eudora steps forward, reading her notes. Accused kissed the test frog without proper lamentation. The townspeople gasp, as though she claimed you married the frog. Reverend Mallory cites scripture about frogs reigning in Egypt. Proof you command weather. A crone swears she saw your shadow move independently. Evidence snowballs. If enough people imagine it, it becomes retroactively observed. Now you must answer. Rule 1 of witch trials. Logic is a foreign language. humor, a risky dialect. Only fear translates fluently. You recall the unsigned note, so you straighten, voice trembling just enough, and proclaim, "Last night the devil himself crept into Reverend Mallory's pulpit. He complained the acoustics were unfit for betrayal and demanded renovations." Gasps. Mallory's face collapses like poorly risen dough. You continue. He also said Magistrate Vexley's beard was flammable and suggested shorter sermons to conserve sin. The crowd swivels to Vexley, whose beard flickers in imaginary embers. Purpose achieved. Collective paranoia turns cannibal. Mallory accuses Vexley of harboring devilish acoustics. Vexley accuses Mallory of sermonizing smoke. Eudora accuses both of appropriating her frog. In the confusion, Constable Wretch loosens your wrist rope. Perhaps he prefers his cider unaccompanied by executions. He nudges. Run when the bell tolls again. Chaos blossoms like plague rash. Crowd fractures into factions. Beard supporters, frog sympathizers, acoustics advocates. Someone throws a pumpkin. Wrong season but on hand. The ravens take flight. And when the bell tolls its second flat note, you leap from the scaffold into a haycart, positioned by Providence or Wretch's unacknowledged mercy. Straw erupts. You roll. Sprint. Providence clutched against your chest. Frog songs echoing behind you. You don't stop until trees swallow the path, and the village roars fade. Breath hitches. Your wrists ache, but are yours. Providence peeks out. Whiskers quivering question marks. You answer by dropping to the moss, laughing until tears water the fern roots. The witch escaped by conjuring only the townspeople's own hysteria. The rope is behind you, the forest ahead, and history, so eager to burn, has for a minute misplaced its matches. Far away, the tribunal's fire pit crackles to life, but it will burn empty tonight, warming nothing but doubts. You, meanwhile, walk deeper into the green hush, where neither sermon nor ledger follows, writing a silent itinerary of places that have never heard a snore, mistaken for apocalypse. The Itinerant Coven of Accidental Sinners. You walk until the forest stops pretending to be polite and starts mumbling in tongues. Branches fork like accusatory fingers. Owls hoot legal opinions. The sun scabs over behind thunder-bruised clouds, and every twig that snaps underfoot sounds like a gavel, deciding you are guilty of something you haven't invented yet. Providence rides inside your jerkin, head poking out near the collar like a courtroom stenographer, eager for fresh scandal. Your breath leaves dragon puffs in the chilled dusk. Worry leaves unpaid rent in your ribs. Somewhere behind, Spindle Elm's bell tolls a frantic, uncertain rhythm, as though townsfolk can't decide whether to summon a hymn or a posse. The road dissolves into a pair of cart ruts that meander through nettles. Then those ruts curl into nothing at all. You half expect the path to turn around and bite you. On the upside, no gallows follow you here. On the downside, neither does common sense. A signpost appears ahead, its plank long rotted away, leaving only the post, which points nowhere and everywhere. You salute it for effort and veer left because left is where stories lean when nobody braces them. As night bruises fully, rain begins. As if the sky remembers that witches are supposed to melt, or at least mildew. You spot a faint glow between trees, a traveling campfire, circled by silhouettes. You weigh risks, thirst, exhaustion, inedible fungi, and tramp closer, broom raised only in your imagination, because you left that implement back in the cell, still manacled to a beam. like a forgotten exclamation mark. 6 figures huddle around the flames, wearing cloaks stitched from mismatched scraps, sermon cloth, burial shroud, bolt of carnival silk. One plays a bone flute, another stirs a cauldron, balanced on 3 cobblestones. The rest pass a jug that sighs each time it's uncorked. When they notice you, the music stops on a sour note, as if the flute regrets its last 2 centuries. The tallest figure, a woman whose hair curls like wood shavings, raises her spoon scepter. Approach, late wanderer. State your sentence. You blink rain from lashes. My sentence hasn't been written yet, but the townsfolk are drafting multiple drafts. The spoon swivels. Then sit. We collect rough drafts of doom. Thus you meet the Itinerant Coven of Accidental Sinners, so named because each member arrived at witchcraft the way some people arrive at a tavern brawl, by tripping over someone else's mistake. The spoon wielder is Tamsin, banished for brewing ale too potent for sobriety. The flute player, Finch, ex-sexton, who used graveyard dirt to fertilize turnips. The cauldron mistress, Asha, once fined 3 goats for blessing bread with wastrel Latin. The remaining trio includes Peter, the unlicensed remedy peddler, Bess, whose only crime was birthing triplets on a Sunday, and Old Hobble, blamed for a drought after predicting rain in iambic pentameter. They accept you with the desperation of folk who know fugitives multiply warmth like shared blankets. You sit on a moss cushion, Providence curled like a punctuation mark atop your knee. Asha ladles stew into a chipped bowl. The broth tastes of root bark, regret, and something possibly once a pigeon. It is heavenly. Rain hisses at the edges of the tar-cloth awning overhead. Jealous that soup invites steam while clouds make only damp, conversation drifts. When you describe Eudora's frog test, the coven howls. Finch nearly swallows his flute. Tamsin toasts your escape with the jug, explaining it contains distilled second chances, which, on sampling, appears to be cider spiked with lightning. You ask about their destination. They shrug in unison. Any valley where nightmares haven't paid property tax, Bess says. We rebrand ourselves in each parish. Pilgrims, plague physicians, amateur astronomers studying the inside of taverns. Tonight, they're executing a small ritual of cartographic camouflage, boiling charcoal, mulberry pulp, and ditch water to make ink able to redraw wanted posters into love letters. Peter demonstrates on a sheet he stole. Your doodled visage now courts a parsnip under moonlight. The spell requires 4 hours to set. Meanwhile, they invite you to add your crimes to the cauldron. You pluck a splinter from the firewood and whisper, "Fell asleep during sermon." Let it drop into brew. The splinter sizzles, rising again shaped like a tiny pillow that floats on the surface before dissolving. Bess applauds. Finch plays a lullaby. Rain applauds harder. Near midnight, Tamsin produces a battered chapbook titled Codex Somnambulis, Lullabies for the Condemned. Tradition dictates newcomers read 1 entry before first sleep. You flip pages until a line snags. If you cannot extinguish the torch, teach it to sleep. You read it aloud. The fire in the pit bows, flames dimming to a slow-breathing ember. Everyone exhales in a single, relieved gust, as though the woodshed of the universe dropped its axe. Bedrolls unfurl. You borrow a cloak segment fragrant with time and misadventure. Providence scarfs beetle crumbs, then nestles inside the hood, but eyelids won't seal. The day replays. Eudora's frog, the scaffold, the bucket labeled hope. Thunder ambles above trees. You shift, Find Finch staring into ember glow. He confides he's expected to conjure a sunrise tomorrow. Pure theatrics to cheer the coven. And he doesn't know how. His previous attempts summoned only migraines. An idea sparks. Reverend Mallory said pumpkins lure sunrise because they borrow moonlight first. Finch snorts, but desperation outweighing scorn asks for details. You fabricate a method, carve a narrow grin so moonbeams funnel in, then at dawn the grin flips outward. Finch drafts notes, faith rising like yeasty dough. You fear he may actually attempt it. Finally, sleep tackles you, less a lullaby than chloroform. Dreams this time are sepia. Either Eudora was right, or your brain is trolling. You stand on the scaffold again, but the crowd is marionette dolls. The rope around your neck is licorice. You bite it and climb down. The dolls applaud. One doll, copper hair, paper crown, hands you a ticket that reads, "Redeem for one new ending." You wake, clutching air but smiling. Dawn, real and unresolved, seeps through tents of leaves. Finch has stabbed a pumpkin on a stake. Inscription, "Upward Sun." Nothing happens, but Finch claims his migraine is gone, so perhaps trade-off acceptable. Camp packs swiftly. Coals buried. Mulberry ink bottled. Before departure, Tamsin gestures you aside. She presents a narrow vial filled with amber fluid. Nightmares despise sweetness. Honeymead spiced with valerian. Sip at twilight, sleep without rope shadows. You accept. Noticing label reads, "Hope, upgraded." She adds, "Tonight we stop at Crosspenny Ford. Parish militia patrols bridge. They hate witches, but love tithes. Your mouth speaks church Latin better than ours. Negotiate passage. We'll handle distractions." Thus enlisted, you stride south with the coven, a caravan of miscast citizens whose only credential is refusal to combust on cue. The road is a butchered ribbon through alder trees. Birds form committees overhead, voting on whether to escort or expose you. They settle for gossip. After 2 leagues, you encounter a crossroads gibbet, empty cage swinging. A decree nailed beneath reads, "Reserved for the next dreamer of colorful frauds." Peter redraws it with mulberry ink. "Reserved for the next tax assessor." Everyone laughs, except Providence, busy extracting beetle legs from cloak seams. At noon, you rest by a stream so clear, it reflects everyone's mistakes in high resolution. Asha ladles water. Each sip tastes of unspoken apologies. Bess sings to her Sunday triplets, now toddling along in a wagon, and the forest hushes to listen. Even the signpost behind you seems to lean closer. Dusk slides down the sky like well-oiled gallows. Crosspenny Ford emerges, a stone bridge arching over black water, its gatehouse craned with pikes. 2 militia guards appear, helmets shining with budget pride. They raise hands for toll. According to Tamsin's scouting, a silver penny per head or proof of baptism. Neither option applies. Coven finances resemble hollow gourds, and baptism records burned in assorted accidents. It's your cue. You step forward, produce the honeymead vial, like a relic. In firm but weary Latin, you declare, "Feretrum pacis aduximus." We carry a beer of peace. The guards, unsure of translation, squint at the vial. You add, in vernacular, "Communion cordial." Ensures sin stays asleep during travel. They exchange looks. One guard mutters, "I heard Reverend Mallory mention that." Success. Malloryism spreads like mold. Guard requests demonstration. You unstop her vial, tip a single drop onto Providence's nose. She licks, curls into instantaneous nap. Guards gape. You proclaim, "Behold, sinless rest." They wave you across, no fee. Request vial in exchange for national security. You hand it over, whispering to Coven, "Hope, downgraded. On the far bank, Providence wakes, hiccuping honey fumes. The coven disappears into the lane, lanterns hooded. Behind you, a guard sips from vial. Moments later, he slumps against parapet, snoring like a benevolent dragon. The other guard shrugs, pockets penny tolls, and decides night shift is overrated. Under the first honest stars you've seen in weeks, Tamsin clasps your shoulder. When we reach Mirefield, you can stay or keep running. Witchcraft isn't a craft, it's an angle of survival. You nod, feeling rope burn's phantom itch around your wrists, but also the lightness of a scaffold that recedes rather than approaches. Behind you, Spindle Elm's bell toll fades to a memory stub. Ahead, the road unspools like a promise nobody knows how to keep, but everyone's willing to test. You walk on, listening to the coven hum lullabies that drift between trees like bombs, and you realize color has returned to dreams after all, painted not by devils, but by every misfit who chooses sleep over fire. Stay alert, listener. Tomorrow's chapter involves Mirefield's floating courthouse, a judge who sentences by horoscope, and Providence auditioning for local rodent guilds. For now, close your eyes, list your accidental sins, and let them simmer into stories rather than pyres. Mirefield's buoyant, scales of injustice. Morning unfurls like a damp flag when the Itinerant Coven, Accidental Sinners, arrives at Mirefield, a marsh town whose buildings float on timbers fat with mildew and municipal doubt. Every house sways half a heartbeat behind the wind, giving the impression the settlement is perpetually reconsidering its life choices. Wooden walkways connect docks to doorsteps. Each plank groans a legal disclaimer before accepting your weight. Providence sniffs brackish air, whiskers quivering at the odor of fish guts, pond mint, and something possibly once judicial. A weather-beaten sign at the pier reads in flaking paint, "Welcome to Mirefield, where justice never sinks, recently patched." The coven advances single file, wagons sloshing miniature wakes. Locals peer from shutter slits, eyes shiny as eel skins. Asha whispers that Mirefield hosts a roaming circuit court presided over by Judge Aldous Tiller, famed for deciding verdicts via horoscope. He consults the stars, then chooses whichever punishment rhymes. Pater mutters that his own star sign, Weeping Goat, rhymes only with throat, bloat, and stoat, none promising. Tamsin's plan is simple. Acquire supplies, leave before cosmic jurisprudence notices them. But fate is bored, and boredom breathes subpoenas. At the market raft, a broad platform tied to 6 bedraggled willows, vendors hawk swamp delicacies, dragonfly fritters, mud-aged turnips, eelskin belts that tighten when you lie. Finch barters the last jug of lightning cider for salt pork and colored wax, useful for candle charms. Meanwhile, Bess negotiates with a cooper for a barrel just the right size to smuggle her triplets if things turn sour. All seems routine until a brass gong clangs from the center of town, reverberating through waterlogged stilts. A crier in mildew-green livery appears, reading a scroll that unfurls into the canal. All strangers to present themselves at the courthouse barge by noontide for celestial arraignment. Failure to appear equals admission of guilt. Under Article 12, hiding confirms hexing. The crier's hat deflates in the drizzle, punctuating the edict with a soggy flop. The coven huddles beside a stall selling optimistic umbrellas. Options: ignore summons and risk pitchfork flotilla, or show up and gamble on rhyming mercy. You volunteer to speak. Given your recent success with faux latin and soporific honey, Tamsin hands you an umbrella that reads, "Not a witch," in cheerful red letters. "Portable alibi," she says. The courthouse barge drifts at anchor, a 2-story structure lashed to pontoons, windows glinting like wet verdicts. Inside, the courtroom lists gently. Pews creak like guilty consciences. Judge Tiller sits upon a dais that tilts with each passing ripple. He's gaunt, with beard divided into 2 braids, weighted by lead sinkers, presumably to keep rulings level. A celestial chart sprawls across his bench. Moon phases, comet doodles, a coffee ring eclipsing Mars. Beside him, Clerk Rubin scribbles on eel parchment with a quill so ragged it resembles moral fiber. Defendants queue along the starboard rail. First up, a fisherman accused of teaching catfish profanity. Tiller consults the chart, traces a line from Pisces to Mercury, and decrees, sentence, 20 lashes of licentious linguine. Because fish and dish, guards escort the baffled fisherman away, presumably to noodle purgatory. Your turn arrives. Clerk Rubin intones your name, slightly mispronounced, and lists alleged crimes: unlicensed sermon sleeping, collaborative frog misconduct, and possession of a ferret with suspiciously keen diction. Providence, perched on your shoulder, chitters objection. Rubin notes verbal rodent interference as an aggravating factor. Judge Tiller flips to the day's horoscope wheel, tapping the segment for your sign. Page-turning newt. He murmurs astronomical whispers, then eyes you like a map he's already folded wrong. Page-turning newt finds Saturn in retro ink, an ill omen for those who rewrite destinies. What rhymes with newt? The courtroom waits. A drip from the ceiling hits floor in iambic timing. He tries suit, boot, flute, dismisses each with a wave. Finally, to commute. He smiles, pleased with the pun. Sentence, forced community service, transcribing court records until the ink sinks. Rubin nods, jotting indefinite, probably because sinking ink is habitual here. Before guards usher you to the scribe's alcove, you request to speak. The umbrella alibi pops open, not a witch slogan glaring beneath torches. You explain that you and your companions are traveling plague mitigators, offering candle charms that calm fevers and silence frogs in church pews. You present the colored wax as evidence and claim Judge Tiller's own horoscope warns of a quill shortage unless he welcomes charitable chandlers. Tiller's brows tangle. He rechecks the chart, draws a fresh line between Venus, free above all, from frogs demanding kisses under duress, and an ink blot that might be Neptune. Indeed, Libra rising threatens writer's cramp. He looks to Rubin, whose quill has just snapped. The clerk's despair seals your argument. Tiller claps lead-braided hands. Community service accepted in wax. He vacates your sentence, replacing it with a contract. Supply the courthouse with enchanted candles by next full moon, or default to rhyming punishment, possibly involving fruit. You sign under the alias Wax Steward, pro tempore. Providence signs with muddy paw. Contract obtained. You slip from the courthouse. Outside, the crier sells souvenir verdicts on scraps of driftwood. You purchase yours. Proof of half-legitimate occupation. Coven reconvenes by the eel belt stall. They cheer your downgraded doom, though Peter mutters that plague mitigator was his second favorite scam, and now it's official paperwork, which ruins mystique. Afternoon drapes itself in fog. Mirefield's lanterns bloom early. Bess suggests leaving before anyone audits the candle clause. Tamsin's pragmatic streak surfaces. Enchanted candles command high prices in safer towns. Fulfill the contract, double as income. It means sourcing more wax and herbs, possibly staging a controlled frog demonstration. The group votes, all in favor except Finch, who abstains on grounds of perpetual migraine. Majority wins. You're now Candle Guild on probation. Providence, meanwhile, has wandered to appear where local rats lounge like union dockhands. She squeaks introductions. The rats point at a half-sunken warehouse said to contain barrels of rendered tallow, confiscated from smugglers. Perfect wax source, but guarded by Mirefield's marsh cats. Feline brutes with algae manes and claws sharpened on barnacles. That night, under a moon as pale as unwritten apologies, the Coven launches Operation Torchlight. Finch distracts marsh cats by performing a faux sunrise with a lantern under orange cloth, while Asha tosses dragonfly fritters as bribes. Tamsin, Peter, and you wade through waist-deep water into the warehouse, boards creaking like bad faith. Inside, barrels stack higher than promises, each stamped property of the most pious fishmongers guild. You pop a lid. Inside sloshes luminous white tallow, slick with salt. Perfect. You siphon into buckets, whispering gratitude to whatever fish died so your candles might glow guilt-free. As you exit, a marsh cat ambush triggers. One feline, eyes glowing swamp gas green, darts toward Bess's wagon of triplets. Instinct overrides diplomacy. You hurl a bucket of molten tallow. The cat flails, now wearing a white cowl of accidental holiness, howls into the marsh and retreats. The triplets applaud. By dawn, barrels of wax, bundles of rosemary, and pouches of soot rest in a borrowed boathouse. You craft test candles, black wick, white body, faint swirls of pond mint. When lit, the flame burns blue and hums a lullaby akin to distant choir frogs. The first edition passes Coven vote. Even Finch nods, headache absent. Providence contributes by chasing mosquitoes into the wax, adding decorative speckles. Delivery day arrives beneath a sky, the color of old verdicts. Judge Tiller inspects candles. Lights one. Blue flame flickers. Courtroom air fills with solemn hush. The judge's beard braids untwist slightly as tension seeps away. Rubine scribbles, ink flowing smoother. Candle fragrance, perhaps. Contract satisfied, Tiller proclaims. Additional order, 24 monthly. He even pays, in silver coins stamped with constellations and clauses. The Coven pockets livelihood, bows as if baptized by bureaucracy, and recedes from Mirefield before curiosity rechains them. On the road out, you pass the silent post, bearing Spindle Elm's wanted notices. Yours is gone, perhaps re-inked as love letter somewhere. The new notice displays Eudora's frog, blue paint fading, marked missing royalty reward. You hope the frog enjoys early retirement. Sunset ignites treetops as the Coven camps near a moss-cobbled ruin. You feel something unclench in your chest, as though the rope around your future just loosened a notch. Tamsin toasts with lightning cider, replenished from Mirefield's bootlegger. Bess's triplets fall asleep inside barrel cradles. Finch serenades with flute, now free of graveyard mold. Providence curls on your lap, dreaming rodent union contracts. You pull the not-a-witch umbrella over both of you and watch sparks leap from the fire, each ember a tiny verdict escaping gravity. Before sleep claims you, you inscribe in the Codex Somnambulis a fresh rule. When justice floats, learn to swim. When sentences rhyme, learn better verses. Tomorrow, the road bends toward Greybridge Abbey, where bells toll in mixed fractions and monks brew beer that forgets your sins. But that, dear listener, is a chapter for another sleepless night. For now, drift. Let the candle's blue flame hum, and may your dreams remain sepia or technicolor as you please. Greybridge's bells, beer of forgetfulness, and the librarian who filed souls by Dew Point. You approach Greybridge Abbey just after dawn's second draft, when the sun still looks like it's proofreading itself. The abbey squats on a granite bluff above a river narrow enough to mock the word bridge, yet wide enough to drown inconvenient truths. Its spires lean at contradictory angles, as though each was built by monks following a different saint's idea of vertical. Bronze bells hang in open arches, tolling fractional chimes, 3 1/4 notes, 5 7/8, so that time here never fully lands. It just circles, like a buzzard, waiting for moral clarity to drop dead. Providence crawls onto your shoulder, nose twitching at the toast and malt fragrance wafting from the Abbey brewery. The coven behind you exchanges hopeful glances. A place that smells of breakfast and beer can't be entirely hostile. At the gatehouse, Brother Whelm, a monk whose tonsure is more crater than circle, greets travelers with a ledger and a ladle. The ledger records visitors' sins in chalk. The ladle holds a sample of Ale of Merciful Oblivion, which Whelm claims helps pilgrims forget the sins they haven't confessed yet. Tamsin sips first, grimaces at the taste, half bread, half amnesia, and the chalk in Whelm's hand instantly writes envy of simpler times. Finch drinks next. Chalk scribbles instrumental pride. When your turn arrives, you feign a sip, letting the foam kiss only your lower lip. The chalk hovers, uncertain, then shrugs into the margin, possible fraud. Investigate later. You hand the ladle to Providence. Whelm frowns but allows it, then notes rodent gluttony. The ledger doesn't discriminate. Inside, cloister walks echo with Gregorian scales, played on what must be kazoos. Novices in sun-bleached habits carry barrels stamped with astrological symbols, each barrel sloshing like a horoscope in liquid form. Brother Whelm explains that the Abbey's brewery produces 12 seasonal beers, one for every zodiac sign. Currently fermenting, Sagittarius Sorrow Stout, reputed to pierce memories with the accuracy of a misfired arrow. The next vat will be Capricorn Cranial Lager, which climbs into your regrets and butts them off cliffs. Pilgrims come from 3 counties to buy temporary oblivion by the mug. The Abbey tithes 1/10 of the proceeds to orphanages and 1/10 to bribing local bishops not to notice the first 1/10. You and the coven are escorted to the Pilgrim's Hall, a cavernous refectory where long tables curve like question marks. Benches are padded with hay to discourage lingering. Brother Whelm grants each of you a wooden token carved with your sign. Yours is a page-turning newt, sporting reading glasses. This, he says, entitles you to 1 free pint of your sign's brew and mandatory attendance at evening absolution bells. Should you misbehave, bells may toll earlier. Old Hobble, whose knees forecast storms better than barometers, asks about accommodations. Whelm indicates a set of cubicles, separated by curtains stitched from retired choir robes. No locks, he adds cheerfully. We trust either the Lord or the beer will keep everyone in place. Bess parks her wagon of triplets near a window. The infants immediately fall asleep to the rhythmic thunk of coopers hammering staves in the courtyard. Asha sets up her cauldron in the corner. Monks glance. Decide alchemy is only suspicious if it explodes before Vespers. While supply lists jag across everyone's minds, wax, herbs, rope that doesn't look like rope, a tiny monk approaches. He introduces himself as Brother Index, the Abbey librarian, tasked with cataloging guest dreams for scholarly cross-referencing. He invites you to deposit your most recent nightmare on a slip of vellum. For archiving under R for really, you oblige, scribing the marionette scaffold and licorice rope. Brother Index's quill trembles with excitement. Metaphorical confectionery, rare, vintage sermonophagia. He tucks the slip into a pouch Morse-coded with ink dots. Apparently, a classification system known only to librarians and small, ambitious gremlins. Mid-morning, Brother Whelm leads a brewery tour meant to induce gratitude and perhaps physical dizziness. Copper kettles hiss like benign dragons. Steam paints saints on the beams, which immediately drip into puddles of semi-holy water. Providence darts along the catwalk chasing hop gnats. The head brewer, Sister Mal, a woman with biceps carved by barley, offers samples of re-fermented wort. Finch tastes and declares it sweeter than Reverend Mallory's spite. Sister Mal smirks. Spite is cheaper, but ruins the head. She confides that a batch of Pisces Penance Porter recently went rogue, producing fishy afternotes. We keep it for eeling nets. During the tour, alarms jangle. The brewery goat, essential for consuming leftover mash, has escaped into the manuscript scriptorium. Monks scatter like spilled beads. Brother Index seizes your sleeve. Since you arrived with a rodent of diplomatic leanings, perhaps the ferret could negotiate. Providence nods, as if expecting this summons all her life. She rides Brother Index's hood into the scriptorium, where parchment carnage unfolds, hooves punching holes in illuminated margins, pages of saintly wisdom chomped into cud. Providence launches, performing a sinuous dance that mesmerizes the goat long enough for Index to lure it outside with a quill dipped in molasses. Crisis averted. The monks reward Providence with a halo of mint leaves, which she devours like fan mail. In thanks, Brother Index invites the coven into the restricted stacks, rows of chained tomes that hiss open like clams. Here lie records of witch trials, some centuries old, some dated next Tuesday in case of bureaucracy backlog. You scan a spine titled Herbal Shortcuts to Plausible Miracles. Finch pockets a pamphlet about migraines cured by silent screaming. Asha finds a scroll describing yeast that leavens bread while cursing kings in tiny bubbles. Index asks only that you reciprocate with a new manuscript of your travels. Peter promises a treatise in gastronomic blasphemy. Afternoon drifts. Bells toll 3 3/5 notes. Everyone gathers in the courtyard where Brother Whelm supervises the ceremony of measured forgetting. Pilgrims queue at casks, lining up their tokens. Sister Mal taps your page-turning newt barrel. The stout pours midnight black, head creamy as well-intentioned gossip. You sip. Flavors bloom. Charred sermon timber. Licorice rope. Sunrise you never witnessed. Memory's sharp edges blur like ink in rain. Around you, coven members experience similar softening. Peter mutters that he's forgotten what guilt smelled like. Tamsin toasts to remembering only things worth repeating. But forgetfulness carries fine print. Each sip dissolves, not only pain, but direction. After the second pint, you realize evening bells will soon summon confessional borrowers, and the Abbey forbids departure after complying. Worse, the beer of merciful oblivion has a rebound effect at dawn, when all suppressed memories return wearing iron shoes, you decide the coven must leave before nightfall's curfew, while wits remain semi-sown. Exit strategy: steal a monastery skiff moored beneath the south cloister arch, float downstream to the trade road, then vanish before sunrise recoil. Obstacles: Brother Whelm's roving patrol, novice monk choir, practicing Dies Irae in kazoo, and the manuscript you promised to donate, lest Brother Index cry plagiarism. Solution unfurls in 3 panicked steps. First, you and Finch stage a migraine miracle demonstration in the courtyard, utilizing the pamphlet of silent screaming. Pilgrims gather, impressed when Finch silently shrieks at the sky, and a heron drops dead mid-flight. Purely coincidental, but visually persuasive. Monks clap, request workshop, create diversion. Second, Tamsin and Asha light a portable fire of spent hops near the goat pen, citing purification. Thick smoke rolls, masking sightlines. Old Hobble recites drought poetry. Smoke behaves like rain cloud, mesmerizing the choir. Bess sneaks her triplets into barrel cradles, labeled fish feed. Third, you dash to restricted stacks. Scratch a hasty manuscript on stolen vellum. A brief account of how not to hang for snoring. Brother Index stamps it with a tiny squid seal, squealing over the fresh edition. As payment, he gifts you a compass that points to the nearest escape clause. Dusk bruises orange. The coven rendezvous at the skiff, loading barrels of ale of merciful oblivion. For market research, Tamsin insists. Providence navigates, standing fore like a bewhiskered figurehead. You push off just as compline bells clatter fractions. 7.5. Lights bloom behind stained glass. Brother Whelm's silhouette scans the riverbank. Kazoo notes chase you downstream like apologetic mosquitoes. The river sluices through reeds glowing with lanternflies. The ale sloshes. Memories ripple. Some wash away. Others surface brighter for the voyage. You recall Spindle, Elm's scaffold, now distant as childhood fever. Tamsin sings a shanty about barrels rolling home. Finch harmonizes with flute, borrowed from regret. The boat glides under willow arches, where frogs debate theology and decide against it. Somewhere past midnight, you ground on a sandbar beneath a ruined milestone. Exhausted, you tether the skiff to a memory of safety. Barrels become makeshift chairs. Asha brews nettle tea to sober the dream edges. Providence dozes atop the compass, which spins gently, perhaps searching for a clause that says fugitives can rest. You fall asleep mid-sentence, head against ale barrel, while the abbey's fractional bells still echo in liver and lung. Dreams tonight are blank parchment, pleasantly non-committal. If any color seeps in, you don't notice. You're too busy remembering how to forget strategically. But dawn is a persistent creditor. It will bring iron-shod recollections and, no doubt, the next township's innovative method of proving people float or burn. For now, though, the coven sleeps, barrels breathe, river hums lullabies in amphibian bass, and the moon keeps its counsel behind thin clouds. Rest, listener. Our story drifts, but does not sink, at least not yet. Tomorrow awaits with new scaffolds, new beverages, and a librarian's squid stamp, promising you have more chapters left to write, and an ink blot that might be Neptune. Indeed, Libra rising threatens writer's cramp. He looks to Rubine, whose quill has just snapped. The clerk's despair seals your argument. Tiller claps lead-braided hands. Community service accepted in wax. He vacates your sentence, replacing it with a contract. Supply the courthouse with enchanted candles. by next full moon, or default to rhyming punishment, possibly involving fruit. You sign under the alias Wax Steward Pro Tempore. Providence signs with Muddy Paw. Contract obtained. You slip from the courthouse. Outside, the crier sells souvenir verdicts on scraps of driftwood. You purchase yours. Proof of half-legitimate occupation. Coven reconvenes by the eel belt stall. They cheer your downgraded doom, though Peter mutters that Plague Mitigator was his second favorite scam, and now it's official paperwork, which ruins mystique. Afternoon drapes itself in fog. Mirefield's lanterns bloom early. Bess suggests leaving before anyone audits the candle clause. Tamsin's pragmatic streak surfaces. Enchanted candles command high prices in safer towns. Fulfill the contract, double as income. It means sourcing more wax and herbs, possibly staging a controlled frog demonstration. The group votes, all in favor except Finch, who abstains on grounds of perpetual migraine. Majority wins. You're now Candle Guild on probation. Providence, meanwhile, has wandered to a pier where local rats lounge like union dockhands. She squeaks introductions. The rats point at a half-sunken warehouse said to contain barrels of rendered tallow, confiscated from smugglers. Perfect wax source, but guarded by Mirefield's marsh cats, feline brutes with algae manes and claws sharpened on barnacles. That night, under a moon as pale as unwritten apologies, the Coven launches Operation Torchlight. Finch distracts marsh cats by performing a faux sunrise with a lantern under orange cloth, while Asha tosses dragonfly fritters as bribes. Tamsin, Peter, and you wade through waist-deep water into the warehouse, boards creaking like bad faith. Inside, barrels stack higher than promises, each stamped property of the most pious fishmongers guild. You pop a lid. Inside sloshes luminous white tallow, slick with salt. Perfect. You siphon into buckets, whispering gratitude to whatever fish died so your candles might glow guilt-free. As you exit, a marsh cat ambush triggers. One feline, eyes glowing swamp gas green, darts toward Bess's wagon of triplets. Instinct overrides diplomacy. You hurl a bucket of molten tallow. The cat flails, now wearing a white cowl of accidental holiness, howls into the marsh and retreats. The triplets applaud. By dawn, barrels of wax, bundles of rosemary, and pouches of soot rest in a borrowed boathouse. You craft test candles, black wick, white body, faint swirls of pond mint. When lit, the flame burns blue and hums a lullaby akin to distant choir frogs. The first edition passes Coven vote. Even Finch nods, headache absent. Providence contributes by chasing mosquitoes into the wax, adding decorative speckles. Delivery day arrives beneath a sky, the color of old verdicts. Judge Tiller inspects candles. Lights one. Blue flame flickers. Courtroom air fills with solemn hush. The judge's beard braids untwist slightly as tension seeps away. Rubine scribbles, ink flowing smoother. Candle fragrance, perhaps. Contract satisfied, Tiller proclaims. Additional order, 24 monthly. He even pays, in silver coins stamped with constellations and clauses. The Coven pockets livelihood, bows as if baptized by bureaucracy, and recedes from Mirefield before curiosity rechains them. On the road out, you pass the silent post, bearing Spindle Elm's wanted notices. Yours is gone, perhaps re-inked as love letter somewhere. The new notice displays Eudora's frog, blue paint fading, marked missing royalty reward. You hope the frog enjoys early retirement. Sunset ignites treetops as the Coven camps near a moss-cobbled ruin. You feel something unclench in your chest, as though the rope around your future just loosened a notch. Tamsin toasts with lightning cider, replenished from Mirefield's bootlegger. Bess's triplets fall asleep inside barrel cradles. Finch serenades with flute, now free of graveyard mold. Providence curls on your lap, dreaming rodent union contracts. You pull the not-a-witch umbrella over both of you and watch sparks leap from the fire, each ember a tiny verdict escaping gravity. Before sleep claims you, you inscribe in the Codex Somnambulis a fresh rule. When justice floats, learn to swim. When sentences rhyme, learn better verses. Tomorrow, the road bends toward Greybridge Abbey, where bells toll in mixed fractions and monks brew beer that forgets your sins. But that, dear listener, is a chapter for another sleepless night. For now, drift. Let the candle's blue flame hum, and may your dreams remain sepia or technicolor as you please. Convertible to state bonds. The coven pockets rattle with modest coins. Memories it is. Ledgra unrolls parchment, stamped with celestial charts suspiciously similar to Judge Tiller's. Choose any 6 categories: taste, touch, sight, sound, smell, existential dread. Each surrendered memory must be no less than 12 seconds long. Asha volunteers the smell of her grandmother's lavender apron. Ledgra siphons it into a crystal ampule. Tamsin relinquishes the taste of her first legal pint. Finch yields the sound of a church bell cracked by lightning. A fair trade, since migraines muffled it anyway. Pater gives the sight of his mother smiling before soup became contraband. That's 4. Bess offers the touch of a newborn's grip, tear in her cheek as she does. Memory extraction feels like drawing a tooth with invisible pliers. 1 more required. All eyes turn to you, their de facto spokesperson. You consider options. The rope itch resurfaces, reminding you of nightmare licorice noose. Perhaps trade that, but Ledgra might weaponize it. Instead, you offer existential dread. From the morning after your scaffold escape, the moment between heartbeat and hoofbeats, when you realized freedom's lease might default, Ledgra inhales greedily, encases dread in silver vial labeled premium anxiety. Tax cleared. Before release, Ledgra gives a stamped chit. Tax compliant. Subject to random future audits. Providence chews the corner. Ledgra doesn't notice. She's already stalking new prey. An elderly cheesemonger trembling before the wooden ear. Coven retreats to a head shadow beyond fair bustle. Everyone feels lighter where memories were plucked, yet oddly unbalanced as if leaning on a missing step. Finch can't recall the bell. Laughter escapes him each time someone mentions thunder. Bess's eyes glisten. Without that newborn grip, she fears her children's hands feel foreign. You vow to help restore memories later. Perhaps Brother Index knows archival bootlegs. Supplies replenished. Ink, vellum, licorice roots. You decide to camp outside town. A drizzle begins, validating Hobble's surrendered prediction. Tents bloom on a knoll, overlooking rye swells. Asha simmers stew, spiked with oblivion, stout to mellow the memory holes. Night sneaks in, wearing cloud slippers. Cobblewick's lanterns flicker like hesitant apologies. During watch, you spot a silhouette approaching. Master Cicatrix, the toll-keeper, cloak flapping like tax forms. He explains he's in Cobblewick to trade memories collected earlier. He offers you a vial. The frog croak, claiming he can't find buyers for amphibian royalty futures. He'll sell it back for a favor. Escort him tomorrow to the border shrine, where he hopes to tender memories directly to spirits of fiscal forgiveness. Agree, and the coven gains safe passage plus fresh gossip. decline, and he sells your memory to an opera composer specializing in absurd tragedies. You accept. Better keep Croak close. Eudora may still crave evidence. Cicatrix shares campfire, recounts origin, once a royal archivist, until he lost the queen's wedding vow in a bookkeeping mishap. To repay, he now collects other people's remembrances, like a crow collects shine. He warns that shrine spirits tax unpaid promises, bring none. Finch smirks. We're bankrupt of promises. Tamsin corrects. We owe each other tomorrow's sunrise. Sleep settles, gentle despite drizzle pattering, drum rolls on canvas. You dream licorice rope again, but now it unknots into candle wicks that burn blue, guiding you through a maze of floating account ledgers. Providence appears in dream, wearing spectacles, stamping each ledger with a frog silhouette. You wake before dawn, smiling. Morning fog wraps camp in thick ledger paper. Cicatrix readies his satchel of vials. The coven shoulders packs. Ahead, the shrine road wends through whispering rye. Behind, Cobblewick's fair awakens to count new revenue. Your feet ache, but purpose crosses the bridge first. Before breaking camp, you scrawl in the Codex Somnambulis, rule for avoiding future taxes. When a memory is too expensive to lose, loan it to someone easily found. You slide the frog croak vial into pocket. Providence sighs, content. Frogs, memories, taxes, everything negotiable, until gallows prove absolute. Onward, listener, to border shrines, spirit auditors, and perhaps a ledger we can write ourselves into and not back out of. The shrine of promissory spirits, the ledger that bled ink, and an unscheduled barter with tomorrow fog escorts you like an underpaid entourage as the coven, Cicatrix, and one mildly hungover ferret trudge toward the border country where maps become rumors. The road, really more a sequence of damp guesses, threads between rye fields silvered by dew, each stalk bowing in what might be reverence or sly derision. Cicatrix keeps pace just behind you, satchel of bottled memories clinking like haunted wind chimes. Every few steps he pats the pouch, perhaps ensuring none of the recollections have absconded on tiny legs. Providence, perched in the hood of your cloak, peers backward with the shrewd vigilance of a tax auditor's familiar. According to Cicatrix, the border shrine of Saint Ledger Domain was founded by merchant monks who believed sins could be balanced like double-entry bookkeeping. As long as you kept immaculate margins and tipped the angels come audit time, pilgrims leave promises instead of coins. I vow to repay kindness. I vow to stop hexing goat cheese. I vow to remember my children's birthdays in the right decade. The spirits weigh each pledge, nibble the sincerity, and issue a receipt in the form of a good omen or a slight reduction in next year's thunder quota. It is said that if you arrive carrying unresolved vows, the spirits will extract payment in something dearer than breath. You wonder how many forgotten promises jangle inside you. The thought feels like reaching into a coat pocket and discovering live wasps. But the road allows no U-turn. By midday, the fog thins into disclaimers, and the shrine appears, a ring of standing stones encircling a ledger carved from black marble. Vines crawl across the pages, yet never obscure the lines. Suspended above by chains of tarnished silver hangs an iron balance scale, one pan empty, the other holding a stone feather, ashen and improbably delicate. Each time a pilgrim arrives, the empty pan lowers, inviting new weight. Cicatrix halts, breath visible in the shade of the stones. Protocol, he whispers. I offer memories first, then you declare your party's promises. The spirits prefer itemized lists. Itemized promises? The coven forms a huddle. Tamsin volunteers. I promise never to distill lightning cider near open confessionals again. Finch mutters. He'll refrain from weaponizing flutes. Asha swears to share any bread that starts chanting. Peter vows to charge fair prices for soup that may or may not cure guilt. Bess, nursing a triplet, promises to stop sighing every time someone mentions Sundays. Old Hobble promises only to keep predicting rain, never drought. He likes the applause. All eyes shift to you. You clear your throat, feel rope ghosts tighten, and pledge, I promise to return, borrowed memories intact. Providence adds a chirp. You translate. She promises to limit beetle theft to morally ambiguous barns. Cicatrix steps to the ledger. One by one, he sets memory vials on the empty scale pan. The glass clinks, the chain squeals, the scale dips until pan and feather balance in uncanny stillness. The vines on the marble ledger writhe, opening a phrase in luminous ink. Debt noted, interest waived until next moon. With that, Cicatrix exhales relief, so profound it seems to age him backward a month. Now the promises. Tamsin recites hers. The vines emboss another line. Pending. Asha speaks. Pending. The coven's vows cue, each stamp the same. Your turn. As you utter the borrowed memory pledge, the feather trembles, losing a flake of stone that drifts upward like reverse ash. Ink blossoms. High-risk loan. Collateral required. Before you comprehend, Providence squeaks her beetle vow. The ledger writes, collateral accepted. One rodent's future whiskers. Your stomach sinks. Providence preens, oblivious to having mortgaged facial hair. A hush settles. The spirits apparently satisfied. But Cicatrix, eager to maximize opportunity, asks the shrine for one indulgence. Expunge the queen's lost wedding vow from my debt. Silence thickens. Vines tighten. The feather shatters, and the scale crashes into dust. The ledger bleeds ink that seeps into the ground, spelling audit breached. Wind pivots colder. Stones vibrate, emitting a chord you feel in molars. From between slabs materializes a figure stitched of parchment scraps and quill slivers. The Spirit Auditor. No face, only a fountain pen nib, where a nose might be, dripping black. It regards Cicatrix with unreadable ledger lines. Then a spiked stylus telescopes from its wrist, pointing at the satchel. Cicatrix stammers. Fair payment. I followed protocol. The stylus jabs the air. Wrong column. You act before mathematics of penance escalate. Pulling the frog croak vial from your pocket, you uncork and release the sound. An echo of cell walls and rebellious amphibian dignity. The croak ricochets among stones, warping into a deep belch that knocks leaves from branches. The Spirit Auditor reels, scribbles mid-air diagrams unraveling. Memories inside Cicatrix's satchel rattle like agitated bees. Seeing imbalance, you pitch the remaining vials onto the ground. Glass shatters, releasing scents of lavender apron, stolen soup, cracked bells. Each memory becomes a firefly of color, swirling to distract the auditor, which lunges after them, writing frantic captions that evaporate before they land. Run, you hiss. The coven bolts. Cicatrix heaves the satchel, now empty, over his shoulder. Guilt lighter than terror. Providence poofs back inside your cloak, clutching her whiskers in case the collateral clause accelerates. Behind, the shrine stones tilt, as though recalculating the shape of fairness. You don't stop until the path merges with a cart track, wheat rising on either side like golden jurors, with no time for deliberation. Only when lungs burn, do you pause. Cicatrix hunches, panting, eyes wet not from exertion, but relief. Debt forgiven, he gasps. You saw. The auditor recorded new entries. Mine are gone. True. By sacrificing all stored memories, he zeroed his ledger. Costly, but freedom seldom takes installments. He presses the frog croak vial, now empty, back into your palm. Keep the bottle. Fill it with a better sound. He offers to guide you to an old smuggler's tunnel, leading beneath the border ridge, safe from militia patrols. In trade, you must promise, carefully, to forget him, if asked. A promise with no interest. You agree. Evening sneaks up in dusty pinks. The coven follows Cicatrix to a tumble-down granary at Field's edge. Beneath rearranged floorboards yawns a chalky passage, smelling of soil and retirement. Before descending, Cicatrix shakes hands all around, then vanishes into Rye, his silhouette soon mistaken for scarecrow or remorse. You pocket the empty vial, aware each trade with spirits tangles consequences in invisible thread. The tunnel slopes gently, lit by lanterns left by considerate criminals. Bess wheels her triplet wagon. They giggle at echoes. Tamsin hums a ditty about ledgers sprouting wings. Halfway, Finch tests a flute trill. The note rebounds as a chorus, as though the tunnel kept a choir in escrow. At exit, you emerge in moonlit pasture overlooking a valley dotted with fireflies. On a distant hill, a gibbet stands silhouetted, but tonight it hosts only wind. Camp forms beside a brook that babbles like a scribe, complaining margins are too narrow. Asha brews nettle tea. Petter stirs soup tinted by a dash of Sagittarius sorrow. Hair of the dog for memory-induced headaches. Providence nibbles rye kernels. Whiskers intact for now. You sit, back against a stone, and jot in the Codex Somnambulis, rule for shrine accounting. When spirits demand collateral, pay in noise. Silence is too expensive. Sleep curls close but not tight. You dream of the marble ledger repaired, each vine tracing letters that read simply, balance. In the dream you write beneath it, a story still uncollected. The stone feather reforms, lighter than first laughter. Dawn's light drips in before the dream finishes, waking you to real birds, real dew, and the next unknown market of mercy. Wake gently, listener. Tomorrow, we navigate contraband tunnels, smelling of cinnamon guilt, meet a cartographer who maps rumors, and discover what Providence does when a whisker mortgage comes due. Until then, keep promises small, inventory memories often, and never underestimate the trading power of one stubborn frog's complaint. The cartographer of rumor, the cinnamon guilt tunnel, and Providence's vanishing whiskers. Dawn stains the valley, pale saffron when the coven, still tasting shrine dust in their teeth, shoulders packs, and follows a sheep track east. Providence rides your cap like a furry masthead. Only you notice a single whisker has turned translucent, as though collateral is collecting itself strand by strand. You say nothing, but your pockets feel suddenly pawnbroker heavy. 2 miles on, the track merges with a rutted ribbon of road that hugs a cinnamon-scented escarpment. Finch sniffs the air and dubs it regret mixed with gingerbread. Asha explains locals call this stretch the Cinnamon Guilt Tunnel, a half-mile cutting between cliffs where smugglers once baked contraband spices into loaves to mask the smell. Church authorities raided, confiscated ovens, and left fault lines that still leak the memory aroma of forbidden pastries. Tamsin decides the smell is either an omen or a breakfast invitation. Either way, the coven proceeds. Halfway through the cutting, a signboard looms. Ambrose Twill, licensed cartographer of things that might be, open 6 days except yesterday. Curiosity outweighs caution. A plank door yawns into a cavern office lit by glowworms nailed to corkboards. Scrolls hang from stalactites like shed skins of gossips. Behind a desk cobbled from broken compasses sits Ambrose Twill himself, lanky, ink-spattered, eyes flickering like faulty lanterns. Instead of looking up, he addresses you while sketching. Welcome, travelers. I chart rumors, destinations that exist if enough people believe them by lunchtime. He flicks a quill toward a fresh parchment where hills reshape under each stroke. Your arrival tilts the likelihood of various futures. Care to commission a route less hunted? Peter perks up, remembering militia patrols ahead. You negotiate payment, 1 barrel of Sagittarius sorrow, and a new rumor, in exchange for a safe corridor to the next border. Twill demands details of the rumor. Bess invents a tale of a bishop's horse that quoted scripture in donkey Latin. Finch embellishes. Asha adds choreography. Twill nods, scribbles, and the glowworms brighten, as if approving theological livestock. He produces 3 maps. The first shows a straight road, bright red, labeled Guaranteed Capture. The second coils like a question mark. 50-50 chance of pyre, 20% tar and feathers. The third map flickers holographic, a dotted path weaving through Marjoram Marsh, village of soft-spoken axes, and bridge that debates toll fees. Probability of survival, 55% until sunset, 78% after, if accompanied by small mammal collateral. Everyone's gaze lands on Providence, and Providence sneezes. Another whisker turns invisible. You blurt that collateral payment is pending. Twill squints. Collateral can't be pending. It collects interest hourly. Spirits send reclaimers when accounts mature. Tamsin curses softly. Whisker foreclosure appears imminent. To outrun reclaimers, you choose the third map. Twill seals it with a wax emblem, shaped like a rumor mill. Map lasts 3 days. Beyond that, the route might never have existed. Don't dawdle. He accepts the cider barrel, already humming a hymn to fermentation as you exit. The coven hustles. The dotted path begins as a goat trail lined with marjoram. Every footstep bruises leaves, releasing pizza tavern aroma. Bess's triplets sneeze in harmony. By noon, you reach soft-spoken axes. Less village, more roadside smithy, whose sign indeed mutters compliments as you pass. Nice boots, serviceable moral fiber. The blacksmith offers axes on discount if you promise to whisper while chopping. Peter buys one for firewood diplomacy. Ahead, the map indicates the bridge that debates toll fees. You arrive to find a rope and plank span across a gorge, each plank painted with coins and legal jargon. A bureaucrat crow perched on a post. Cause, reciprocal toll. You pay, we pay back in riddles. Tamsin flips a copper. The crow registers payment, then recites, "What costs nothing, is worth everything, and can be taken in a blink?" Finch answers, "A memory." The crow sighs, refund accepted, and flaps off disgruntled. You cross unmolested. The mood lightens until Providence squeals. A third whisker vanishes. Shadows converge downslope, coalescing into 2 human figures, clad in parchment robes, faces ink-blotted. Spirit reclaimers, mobile auditors armed with stylus spears. They glide rather than walk, writing mid-air runes that linger like frost. They block the path, demand collateral settlement. Rodent's future whiskers? Installments overdue. Asha steps forward, cauldron ladle raised. Collateral mortgaged, but not delinquent. We negotiate. The reclaimers write, void, across her shadow. She staggers, suddenly cold. Old Hobble begins reciting rain verse, attempting distraction, but ink binds his ankles to ground. The stylus spears, angle toward Providence, time for rumor leverage. You unfurl Twill's map, thrust it between reclaimers. We hold sovereign passage under clause of emergent credibility. Interference nullifies route and collapses payment source. They hesitate. The map's dotted path glows, showing their own silhouettes erased if credibility fails. One writes, consult escrow, but the other notices Providence's remaining whiskers, only two still opaque. It lunges. Finch whips out soft-spoken axe. With courtesy, it slices through a stylus spear, which dissolves into letters that scatter like frightened ants. Tamsin hurls a flask of lightning cider. Glass shatters. Vapors ignite mid-sentence. Scorch the other reclaimer's robe, turning parchment to comedic confetti. The ink-blotted faces scream citations, then evaporate into ellipses. The air tastes briefly of burning bureaucracy. The map dims, route still viable, but Providence wobbles. The missing whiskers have cost her equilibrium. You tuck her inside cloak and vow repayment soon. Dusk approaches. Dotted path threads into the weather-vane heath, where every shrub bends whichever direction, gossip blows. Here stands a lone inn. The rumor rest, sign creaking but promising, rooms riddles, and reasonable alibis. Inside, patrons whisper speculative statements. Each sentence hangs above tables until contradicted. The innkeeper, Madame Portend, collects contradictions in jars to ferment into prophecy tonic. You barter for 2 attic rooms and dinner. Payment. You share the latest rumor of a bilingual horse. Jars glow with fresh contradiction fumes. Providence sips watered broth. Her remaining whiskers pulse faint blue. Madame Portend examines her. Spiritual foreclosure, eh? Only remedy. Repay shrine with a better promise, or supply whiskers of higher market value. Lynx, perhaps. Lynx is scarce. Better promise easier? Finch proposes forging a pledge the spirits can't refuse. Offer them a future story too valuable to cancel. Madame Portend notes spirits love exclusive rights. You draft a parchment. We, itinerant citizens, pledge to deliver the first map of a place that doesn't yet exist. Penned in honest ink within 1 lunar cycle. Tamsin's eyes widen. Means returning to Ambrose Twill for guidance. Forging uncharted terrain. The Codex Somnambulus provides suitable paper. Peter files nib pen. Bess's triplets serve as witness scribbles. Sticky fingerprints count. Providence seals with last solid whisker. The contract radiates faint halo. Hope or insolvency incandescent. Night deepens. Window rattling with half-believed winds. You drift into dreams of cartographic dragons under construction. In one, you bargain whiskers for coastline curves. In another, the spirits file objections in calligraphy that drips like candle grease. Morning cracks open with debate. Deliver contract immediately, or first map the unmapped to prove intent. Twill likely has blank parchment laced with maybe ink. Decision. Split. Tamsin, Finch, and Old Hobble escort barrels and triplets toward next market. You, Asha, Peter, Providence dash back through cinnamon cutting to Twill. Madame Portend gives a tiny glass bottle, holding contradiction vapor. Just in case truth needs cushioning, she warns the route may rewrite itself after yesterday's skirmish. Rumors spoil quickly once tasted. You set off, heart thudding like misprinted ellipsis. Providence nestles in your scarf, whiskerless now, but eyes bright. We'll replace them, you promise. She squeaks belief, a currency rarer than silver. Behind, the inn's sign updates itself. Tonight's story: Witch with ferret outsmarts debt collectors. Ahead, the path flickers, dotted lines rearranging as if surprised by your haste. You quicken steps, carrying contract, empty frog vial, and a pocket full of half-remembered pastries. The spirits are watching indexes shift, but stories, especially fresh ones, compound interest faster than fear. Walk lightly, listener. The next turn leads to maps inked with possibility, and every promise we draw may yet redraw us. How to draft a country between heartbeats and pay a ferret's debt in uncharted ink. Back through the cinnamon guilt, cutting you run. The aroma of illicit pastry clinging to your boots like wet parchment. Asha's cauldron clanks on her back, half filled with minty broth that sloshes a nervous waltz. Petter strides beside you, soft-spoken axe slung casual but ready. Each footfall bangs the dotted path like a typewriter key, perpetually rewriting the route beneath you. Providence bobs inside your scarf, whiskerless now, nose twitching at every rumor, whirling in the underbrush. Though her face appears comically naked, her bright eyes insist collateral loss is temporary, merely another entry in the balance sheet of mischief. Ambrose Twill's shack emerges from the fog mid-afternoon. Glowworms still posting overtime hours on their cork notice board. The cartographer looks up from a fresh scroll as you burst in, panting. "Ah," he says, wiping ink on his sleeve. The rumor growers returned prematurely. Map malfunction? Or did the reclaimers ask for autographs? You slap the spirit contract on the desk. We need to chart a place that doesn't exist yet. Exclusive rights. Within one lunar cycle or spirits. Take my ferret's future whiskers permanently. Twill whistles. That's ambitious cartography, even for me. He unrolls spindle-thin parchment laced with shimmering fibers. This is maybe paper. It records whatever might be, provided the ink believes. He rummages for an inkwell labeled potential, bone dry. We'll need fresh maybe ink. Best source? The half-imagined fair, tonight only, 3 Valleys North. Booth 27 sells it by the dram. 3 Valleys. Sunset approaches like an impatient publisher. Twill insists on joining. Partnership clause protects me from lawsuits, and fetches his walking globe, a hollow orb that rolls behind him, projecting topography as he goes. You four depart, globe tumbling like a loyal moon. The dotted path flickers ahead, reasserting probability with every step. First Valley, Thistle Hollow. Purple stems snag coats, whispering criticisms about threadbare seams. Peter hacks passage, apologizing to plants for deforestation. Second Valley, Echo Tarn, where words bounce back wearing disguises. Asha mutters recipe ratios. Echoes return as scandalous limericks. Providence hears her own squeaks, come back in baritone. Seems pleased. Fog thickens, impregnated with possibility. By nightfall you crest the ridge to the Third Valley. Lanterns bob below like captive stars. Canvas stalls shimmer in half-built geometry. Welcome to the half-imagined fair. Events here exist only as long as someone expects them. At the gate, a ticket wraith asks for admission fee, 1 assumption each. Asha assumes her broth cures guilt. Wraith pockets the notion. Peter assumes axes never betray. Gone. You assume Providence's whiskers will grow back. The wraith sniffs, deems it acceptable, and dissolves into confetti. Inside, sights escalate. A merry-go-round of unfinished horses, hawkers selling futures in jars, tomorrow's headache free with purchase, a minstrel tuning a lute, missing half its frets. Booth 27 stands near a tent labeled Cartography curios. A sign reads, maybe, ink, guaranteed unreliable. Proprietor, Madame Aprox, hair ablaze with gradient rumors, pince-nez dangling from probability. She recognizes Twill, eyes narrowing. Still buying ink on credit of conjecture? He bows. Need a dram, plus stabilizer gum. Spirit collateral at stake. She taps long nails on counter. Price. One fresh rumor that scares you. Twill balks. Fear isn't his speciality. You volunteer. Voice hushed. There is a village where sermons fall asleep, mid-congregation, and wake as curses. Madame Aprox shivers. Credible and frightening. Deal. She fills a vial with liquid that looks like starlight. Having second thoughts, hands you a walnut-sized gum pellet and a warning. Ink dries instantly and despises hesitation. Back outside, the fair trembles. Stalls fade as patrons doubt their cravings. You hurry to the outskirts, unroll maybe paper on a flat stone. Moon a silver compass overhead. Twill positions globe. It projects ghost terrain, unsubstantiated mountains, hypothetical rivers. Choose, he urges. Once ink touches, possibility collapses into fact. You remember the frog croak's escape, the ledger bleeding ink, and visualize a land safe from scaffold bell and audit toll, valleys cushioned in moss where nightmares convert to compost. Hand shaking, you dip quill. First stroke carves a serpentine river. The lull. Their banks absorb fear like blotting paper. Next, twin hills shaped like closed eyes. Dreamer's range. Providence stands on hind legs, squeaks approval. Asha requests fertile flats for bread chanting. You ink yeast plains. Peter demands forests, where axes debate ethics. You add whisperwood. Twill inks a single road, rumor route, terminating in an ellipsis. Finally, you inscribe a sanctuary, Ferret's Haven, a dot accented by a whisker glyph. The ink flashes, bonds. The map surface warms. Madame Aprox appears unbidden, stamping the corner with a sigil, authenticity pending review. Delivery to spirits must be personal, she says. Maps resent postal service. Asha packs map in beeswax wrapping. Twill suggests returning via ridge of rethinks. Shorter, but less believed. Majority wins. You take it. Climbing switchbacks, you feel the nightfold. Stars overhead blink uncertain. Near summit, the path stutters. Sections vanish like skipped heartbeat. A shape blocks crest. 3 reclaimers fused into one towering figure. Stylus, as long as a spear. It writes in the air. Collateral seizure rebooted. Providence quivers. Final phantom whisker flickering. The reclaimer demands the map. Spirits want collateral and product. You bluff. Map incomplete. Seize it, and it unmaps you. It hesitates. Twill rolls globe forward. Projection shines reclaimer, surrounded by ink dissolving its outline. Stylus falters. Pater's soft-spoken axe lands a courteous tap on its calf. Finch blows a high note that fractures silence. Asha flings stabilizer gum pellet. It bursts, coating reclaimer in sticky ambiguity. The giant stumbles, each step rewriting ground into quicksand of possibilities. Finally, it collapses, sinking into page-white mist, leaving only a stylus wedged in granite. You retrieve it. A pen forged of duty and deception might pair nicely with frog croak vial. By dawn, you reach previous camp near Brook of Balance. Spirits sense arrival. Shrine stones at hilltop glimmer faint even from miles. Tamsin's half of coven waits. Barrels intact. News fresh. Militia scouts near soft-spoken axes, but still arguing toll debates. Good. Procession climbs hill, where Shrine of Promissory Spirits yawns into pink sunrise. Featherless scale lies shattered. Vines have grown into cursive question marks. You step inside the stone ring, unseal map. The ground hums. Map unfurls mid-air, glowing. Vines thread toward it, reading new geography. Words sizzle into ledger. As yet unaccounted land. Collateral satisfied. A pulse of silver light arcs to providence. Invisible whiskers shimmer back, solid, silkier than hope. She shakes head, sneezes ink motes, scrambles onto your shoulder, whole again. Spirits emboss, final line. Delivery accepted. Audit suspended until map ages. Scale reconstitutes. Feather regains perch. Shrine stones straighten, perhaps smiling. Coven exhales. Cicatrix nowhere. His own bargain concluded, but his absence feels like a blank ledger entry. Maybe forgiven, maybe footnoted. Tamsin taps keg. Everyone toasts with modest sips. No oblivion this time. Memory cherished. Twill pocket stylus, eyes shining. Maps created tonight will seed tomorrow's rumors, he says. Guard them, or someone else will claim authorship. Sun rises proper. You fold map. Its ink now quiet. Peter suggests next market. Finch considers composing lullaby of yeast plains. Old Hobble predicts gentle drizzle, purely for ambiance. You allow yourself a slow breath. Rope itch, fully quiet. In Codex Somnambulis, you inscribe rule for building safe places. Write them first in ink that doubts, then walk there until doubt forgets. Providence adds paw print. Twill marks with globe stamp. Probability certified. As morning stretches, you and companions descend hill toward fresh horizon. Somewhere behind, shrine stones settle, like archivists satisfied for now. Somewhere ahead, rumor route curves, waiting to turn dotted lines into dusty footprints. And if spirits dare balance sheets again, they'll find you armed with a stylus that sows ambiguity, a map that breathes, and a ferret whose whiskers testify that promises, when honored creatively, can regrow stronger than before. Rest for a moment, listener. The road ahead contains beer that remembers, axes that apologize, and perhaps, just perhaps, a bishop's multilingual horse. But each chapter earned its pause. Close whatever eyes you dream in. Let map edges curl around your thoughts, and wake when the dotted path beckons you onward. The polyglot bishop's horse, the apologetic guillotine, and a receipt for borrowed thunder. The sun is fully awake and already gossiping with clouds by the time the coven's wagons rattle onto a plateau carpeted in dandelions, the color of litigants' rage. Ahead rises St. Palindrome's episcopal seat, a walled town famous for its marketplace sermons that read the same backward and forward, deliver us as red, live, drow. Rumor route snakes toward its gate, newly transitioned from dotted speculation to cobblestone certainty. Providence balances on the wagon's shaft, whiskers restored and angled, like punctuation, ready to clarify a convoluted sentence. Ambrose Twill has detached himself, promising to chart lateral rumors along the border, but leaves you his walking globe, which sighs about separation anxiety whenever bumped. A placard before the gate announces the day's attractions. Mid-year penitential fair, featuring the bishop's multilingual stallion, an apologetic guillotine demonstration, and half-price absolutions, BYO sin. Finch declares the lineup inconsistent branding, but Tamsin, always eyeing profit, sees opportunity. Crowds love candles and Story Ink souvenirs. Inside, booths cram the square, each staffed by clerics moonlighting as barkers. One hawks instant piety powder, just add guilt. Another sells indulgence coupons shaped like raffle tickets. Tear off one stub per misdemeanor. In the center stands the main act, the bishop himself, huge mitre gleaming, seated on a lectern-shaped saddle, astride his renowned stallion, Reverence. The horse wears spectacle blinkers and a stole around its neck. At a signal, Reverence neighs. Dominus vobiscum. The congregation responds as trained. Then the horse switches to Old Norse, causing parishioners to scramble for glossaries. Every new language earns coins tossed into a velvet feed bag. Bess positions her triplets on an upturned crate. The infants bob like jury members. Pater unpacks candle samples. Asha sets a cauldron labeled Yeast Plains Soup. Guaranteed conversational. Business could flourish. Except for the guillotine looming on a mobile dais. Its blade, etched with gilded apology scripts, is operated by Friar Mea Culpa, who assures onlookers it never beheads without drafting a sincere regret letter. He offers demonstrations with cabbages, each severed head accompanied by a tearful, "I'm terribly sorry I did that." Crowds applaud, pledging to sin more carefully. You, however, scan for militia scouts reported near soft-spoken axes. 2 emerge by the stocks, uniforms creased with self-importance. They unroll warrants showing crude sketches. Your face, Finch's flute, a barrel, an unidentified ferret. Reward, 5 crowns per capture, or 3 for plausible gossip. Providence tucks into cloak depth. You lower hat brim. Time to convert danger into stagecraft. Finch proposes distracting scouts with polyglot horse spectacle. You escalate. Collaborate with Reverend Stallion to stage a theological debate so complex the scouts forget handwriting. Asha approaches Bishop, presents the blue flame candle as lexical incense. Bishop, sucker for multilingual mystique, agrees to integrate it into show. You whisper proposal to Reverence, horse savvy in 13 tongues, plus rodent squeaks. Providence squeaks terms. Horse snorts in assent. High noon. Bishop calls for special demonstration. Tongues of fire and irony. Asha lights candle. Flame turns cerulean, releasing cinnamon cries. Reverence begins sermon in alternating syllables of Latin and market slang. Dominus discount us vobiscum, 2 for 1 sanctus. Crow laughs, confused. Then horse pivots to bureaucrat crow caws, quoting toll contracts from memory. Scouts draw nearer, scribbling nonsense into notepads. Finch joins, playing silent scream flute. Sound waves force words to loop backward. Snayap, ruoi, ruff, evigroff, I. Now Bishop mispronounces doctrine on purpose. Parishioners recite it wrong, outraging pious acoustics. While chaos mushrooms, Petter and Tamsin slip behind militia, tying their bootlaces together with whisperwood vines. Friar Mea Culpa, sensing performance slump, offers to apologize to any cabbage-like sin. Old Hobble predicts drizzle. Sky obliges lightly, causing wax paper warrants to smear into modern art. Scouts tumble when they attempt pursuit, legs bound. Bess's triplets fling pretzel crumbs, causing pigeons to descend in feathered riot. Under cover of avian protest, the coven dismantles stalls, tossing leftover soup to distract guards, now wrestling apologetic guillotine that keeps saying, "I beg your pardon," each time blade lowers toward an unfortunate carrot. Escape plan. Follow walking globes projected back alley route to East Gate before warrants dry. But the bishop, flushed with lexical glory, insists on gifting Reverence's next performance venue, your caravan, so long as you transport ecclesiastical horse safely and write favorable rumors. A polyglot stallion is useful, though vulnerable to spontaneous theology. You accept. Providence glares at large hoof, but they negotiate vocab boundaries. Horse won't whinny in ferret dialect without permission. Caravan exits East Gate amid drizzle, bridging into orchard country where trees bow under silent apples. Scouts disentangle eventually, but by then Rumor Root's dotted extension has unrolled courtesy of Globe. It leads to Cloudwall March, a clifftop town allegedly existing only on windy days. According to Twill's Marginalia, Cloudwall hosts a weather market where thunder is loaned out with interest and lightning sold in sealed jars. Tamsin eyes lightning jars for cider upgrades. Finch ponders migraine research, yet dust of pursuit lingers. At sundown, camp forms beneath an overhang smelling of lichen and lost travelers. Reverence grazes on rhetorical grass. Every bite produces unsure nays. Peter offers a gratitude toast. Sagittarius sorrow, diluted to memory-friendly, 3%. Everyone sips. Collective mood slides from frantic to reflective. Providence climbs atop barrel, presents whiskers intact, but furrowed. They've grown longer than before. Small interest payment in your favor. Night deepens. Drizzle thins into threadbare apologies. You sit with Codex Somnambulus by firelight, stylus hovering. Rule demands capture. When hunted by the past, draft a present so bewildering the chase stops to take notes. You ink it, blow to dry. The page softens. Maybe paper fibers still ride in binding, murmuring potential. Reverence chooses this quiet to speak in plain human tongue. Rare, evidently exhausting. I.O. Bishop, crave freedom of pasture without sermons. You nod, promise to escort horse beyond diocesan jurisdiction. Another contract, this time verbal, sealed with carrot nibble. A distant rumble, thunder, or guillotine blade excusing itself. Old Hobble says dry weather holds till dawn. For once you believe him. Finch tests a soft flute note. It returns as hush. Apples drop in orchard. Thuds like punctuation ending scandal. You drift to sleep. Providence a warm comma at your neck. Dreaming of Cloudwall's markets, where lightning shelves spark neon, and vendors loan out cumulus shapes, shaped like unspoken apologies. Somewhere behind, Bishop pens encyclical about runaway horse. Ahead, spirits leaf through your latest unpaid promises, sharpening stylus tips. Rest now, listener. Next chapter will scale cliffs of evaporating towns, haggle for thunder on consignment, and decide whether apologies can be aged in oak. For tonight, let polyglot horses bless your dreams in whichever language you choose to forget by morning, buying storms on credit, selling silence by the pound, and sleeping in a sky that finally forgot to burn. Cloudwall March appears at noon exactly as the rumors insisted, materializing out of wind like a print settling onto paper. One moment, the clifftop ahead is empty sky. The next it hosts tiered terraces of shanty stalls, awnings bellied by gale, and a perimeter of weather vanes that spin so fast they whine like jailed harps. The town exists only while the updraft off the gorge remains opinionated. Merchants work quickly, fortunes measured in gusts per minute. Your caravan creaks onto the stone apron amid applause of flapping tarps. Reverence the multilingual stallion bows his cannon bone. Knicker greeting in 3 dialects. The market's customs clerk waves him through. Beasts of blessing travel tariff-free. The coven disperses to scout wares. Tamsin veers toward a booth selling lightning jars. Glass cylinders where blue filaments writhe, labeled Grade A strike, reusable. Finch follows scent of migraine salves, brewed from thunder residue. Pasha eyes stalls of cloud yeast, said to make bread that vanishes at sunset, leaving only fragrance and full stomachs. Peter debates ethics with a vendor hawking preemptive apologies. Cured like ham, Bess parks triplet wagon in lee of a boulder, painted with meteorological graffiti. Rain is just sky auditioning for tears. You, Providence, and Reverence climb central stair toward the Grand Bourse, where storm futures are traded alongside silences bottled from extinct libraries. At the summit stands the clearinghouse dome, its ceiling a lattice of copper rods that attract mutterings of distant thunder. A sign at the door. Enter quietly. Silence priced by decibel. Inside, brokers in robes stitched with isobars conduct auctions by semaphore. Clapping would bankrupt them. A marble counter runs the circumference, staffed by scribes whose quills spark at each stroke. You present the walking globe as collateral. It projects rumor route and your newly inked territories. Dreamer's Range, Yeast Plains, Whisperwood. The clerk, a woman with thunderhead hair, taps valuations. Unprecedented geography, worth 6 bolts of mid-grade thunder or 4 hours of confirmed hush. You choose thunder. Tamsin needs electricity for cider distillery. Transaction requires witness of silence. Providence volunteers. Scribes place her on velvet pad, ringed by copper needles. She must remain mute for 100 heartbeats while contract seals. Ferrets excel at stealth, but object to stillness. Yet Providence sits statue, whiskers twitching only in Morse. Ink dries, copper needles subside, contract complete. You tuck 2 thunder jars into pack, each swirling like bottled argument. Outside, market bustle swells. Rumors of approaching militia ripple through crowd. Sketches of your faces pinned at gate. Time to quit while sky still hosts town. The coven regroups at the wagon. Tamsin brandishes lightning jar of her own, traded for barrel of stout. Finch clutches migraine salve, emitting faint euphonic hum. Asha carries dough rising in air, not bowl, held together by hope. Petter wears necklace of apology hams. Every step pardons grass. Triplets suck cloud candy floss, tongues blue with impending nostalgia. Escape route unfurls via globe, a switchback descending cliff into fog brick pass, where lawmen fear avalanches of memory foam. But militia blocks eastern ramp. You must bribe Skyrail, an aerial tramway ferrying crates of bottled wind to lowland monasteries. The rail operator, Deacon Zephyr, charges either coin or hush. You have thunder, not hush. Coin light. Finch proposes trading the Guillotine's stylus-etched apology blade, pilfered during cabbage chaos. Zephyr admires craftsmanship, snaps handshake. Loading wagon onto platform requires linguistic diplomacy. Reverence debates with pulley horse. Mechanical mule powered by psalms. Settling on Latin refrain that times lift a scent. Halfway across chasm, militia shouts echo. Bullets of paperwork zoom but lose altitude. Platform glides into cliff cave, lined with stalactites shaped like exclamation points. Zephyr unhooks gondola, salutes with wind turbine cap. Cave narrows into tunnel etched by ancient storms. Thunder jars discharge faint hum, lighting path and flickers. At midpoint stands a toll hermit, Sister Null, guardian of the gap. A fissure spanned only by a single word spoken true. She requests any silence you can spare. You remember Force voucher, 4 hours of hush. You offer 1 hour. She accepts, placing brass sand glass in Providence's paws. When sand empties, no one may speak until you cross. Coven nods. Sister Null whispers password, gloaming. The fissure births a bridge of condensed hush, vertebrae of soundlessness. You step onto it. Even footfalls refuse echo. Midway, Providence sneezes, sound swallowed whole. Sand drains, bridge holds. Across the gap, voices return like timid birds. Finch breaks first. Never trust a bridge with ears. Sandglass flips itself. Contract evidently renewable. Sister Knoll now requests farewell joke. Tamsin deploys pun about yeast rising to the occasion. Stalactites groan approvingly. Path clears. Out of cave, landscape unfolds. Rolling moorland under afternoon sky. Rumor routes dotted line now solid, leading to rendezvous meadow, where Twill promised to appear if you survived. Indeed, his silhouette waits beside a pop-up pavilion, emblazoned closing ceremony of this particular adventure. He waves, globe orbiting him again, like homing moon. Congrats, he calls. Your map's trending among speculative geographers. Spirits happy, reclaimers reassigned to overdue comets. Celebration includes distributing thunder jars. One to Tamsin, cider power. One to Finch, acoustic experiments. The final jar you keep, labeled Emergency Dawn. Triplets receive silent lollipops. They giggle quieter than thoughts. Reverence tastes grass, declares it fluent in Greek. Horse is pleased. Yet one ledger still tugs. Spindle Elm's scaffold nightmares. The memory sometimes surfaces in ale glint and rope itch dawns. Twill suggests a cure. Donate the memory to Cloudwall's silence bank during next levitation. Exchange it for dream of your choosing. You consider, then decline. Some memories anchor stories. Without the scaffold, you'd have no chapters to flee. No sisters in sin. No ferret collateral saga. You choose to keep rope burn as author credit. Sun dips. Twill previews tomorrow's rumor. A sea that forgets boats. Perfect for hiding wagons. Covens nod. Plans sprout. Open bakery in Yeast Plains. Touring polyglot sermons with reverence. Selling lightning cider under label Guilty Spark. Life, once measured in rope knots, now parses itself in improbable futures. Night settles. Calm for once. No bells fractioning. No reclaimers scribbling. You sit by cookfire, codex on knees. Providence curls. Whiskers luminous against Thunderjar's glow. You ink final rule of this leg. When the world writes you into margins, steal the quill, chart new paper, and leave old gallows unsigned. The ink dries. Page size complete. Stars overhead flicker like glowworms on Twill's ceiling. Writing maps no one sells yet. You watch until eyelids tax themselves closed. In dreams, Yeast Plains bread sings lullabies. Axes praise trees before harvest. Guillotines apologize to carrots. And frog croaks echo as royal decrees across Whisperwood. Sleep easy, listener. If you hear thunder, it's probably just our cargo rerouting nightmares into renewable energy. And if tomorrow brings new trials, remember, promises can be renegotiated, maps redrawn, whiskers regrown, and even a witch's snore can topple a scaffold when the story refuses to burn.